So let me start with a very simple scientific fact. We have one planet. You probably can't see it, it's very small, but I can guarantee you it's a planet. Where we are is up here on the top, where I come from is down there on the bottom. And even my scientists who I work with, 200 or 300 of them, they normally say, don't go around saying things about science, you need to get them peer-reviewed for a year. I asked a couple of them this morning, they're here. I said, can I say one planet? I said, go for it, boss, tell Glasgow, there's only one planet. So let's move to a second scientific fact. If everyone in the world lived like we do here in Scotland and the UK, all 7 billion people, we would need 3 planets. Scientific fact. Now, if you're a poor leader, you can look at this and say, I'm going to ignore that, I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist. I'm going to live as if there's 3 planets, but there's only one. Good leaders say there's only one game in town. This one, there's one planet. You have to face the reality, you have to work within it. Great leaders will say, how do we turn this from a threat into an opportunity for our organisations, whether you're leading organisationally or whether you're somewhere in the organisation. So I want to talk to you about what we can all do to be great leaders and tackle this as a great opportunity, not a great threat. So let me give you some examples of what I've seen from around the world. I worked for the Northern Ireland Environment Agency before I came to Scotland. Most Australians pay to travel around the UK. I'm getting UK governments to pay for me to travel around the UK. I've got England and Wales to go yet. And when I was there, we had a cement company. Cement manufacturers, very energy intensive, and they said to us, we've got a big problem. Energy costs are very high in Northern Ireland, very high in greenhouse gases. So that's a big commercial problem for us. Can you help us? And we said, here's a thought, find unusual partners. That's my first thought for leadership to tackle this. And they said, what can we do? I said, the biggest chicken meat producer in the UK is in Northern Ireland. Because of the horse meat scandal we had a few years ago, they can help. And the cement manufacturing chief executive looked at me and said, really? How does that help us? I said, well, because of the horse meat scandal, you might recall, a couple of big UK buyers said, to ensure that doesn't happen again, to get a security of supply, we're going to buy all our meat from just inside the UK so we can guarantee its quality and its source. This big chicken producer in Northern Ireland was already over the nitrates limit. Nitrates is a particular type of pollutant that when you feed a chicken, it either comes out as chicken meat or chicken waste. So even with their current level of production, it was difficult. They were running up against the regulatory constraints. So we said to the cement manufacturer, could you trial taking their chicken waste and use that as an alternative fuel source? Much cheaper, much lower greenhouse gas content. They said, we'll have a go at that. The chicken producer said, we'll have a go at that as well. Because if they could find a solution for their problem, their environmental problem, nitrates, that would mean they might potentially be able to take this expansion opportunity. For us as the regulator over there, we were starting to solve 2 environmental problems for this. For both companies, we were creating commercial gain. So find unusual partners. There was no reason for a cement manufacturer and a poultry producer to ever talk to each other. We said, we talk to you both, why don't the 3 of us get together? Maybe once a month, just go and talk to an organisation that you would normally have nothing to do with. I guarantee you, if you do that 3 or 4 times, you will find some opportunity of mutual benefit to tackle this problem. The second message I have for you is that disruptive business models will be the norm in this century. If we only have one of these, and we're currently operating as if we have 3, and we're all going in the wrong direction, there are almost no countries turning that around, then every sector will be disrupted. So get the advantage of being one of the first movers to work out how in your sector you have to operate within one planet. Let me tell you about a pension fund in Australia, a friend of mine called Bob. This guy, Bob, was running a pension fund in the year 2000, successful pension fund, returned good money to its members. And he heard a guy called Paul Hawken speak, famous environmentalist. Paul talked about this problem in 2000. And it was a road to Damascus moment for Bob. He realised that he was creating monetary income for people to enjoy their retirement, his members. Well, what happens if you get that monetary income in 20 or 30 years' time and the planet is 3 or 4 degrees warmer and life is unbearable? What's the point in having 40,000 Australian dollars or 30,000 English pounds? There's no point at all. So he set out to create the first sustainable pension fund on the planet. Now, Bob did a whole bunch of things. I just mentioned 2. He only gave their pension money to property investors who had ways of reducing the water and energy use in the commercial properties they invested in. about $1 billion or $2 worth of properties in Australia. Another thing he did was they only started buying shares in companies that had an environmental policy, an environmental plan, and importantly, an environmental plan that unleashed commercial opportunities, not environmental plans that caused damage to the commercial viability of the company. Lots of other things he did. But one of the keys to this story about leadership is, I used to meet Bob, 2 Australian blokes would meet, and I'd say, "G'day, Bob, how you going?" And we'd have a chat, we'd have to talk about business and what to do. But when he started doing this stuff with his pension fund, he became known as Sustainability Bob. And everyone in the environment movement would talk about Sustainability Bob with this great admiration for what he was doing. And other people called him Sustainability Bob behind his back to mock and ridicule him. Other people in the pension fund sector in Australia, because they thought he was a nutter doing all this stuff for the environment. I was actually on holiday with my wife in Canada, the Rocky Mountaineer train across to Vancouver through the Rocky Mountains. And I just happened to be sitting next to this Australian guy. Oh, he's from Melbourne. Oh, what do you do? We chat. He ran a pension fund. He was a chief executive of a pension fund. In fact, I think he was just about to lose his job. And I mentioned Bob. He said, "Oh, that nutcase." The important thing about this story is, for that entire period that Bob was running that pension fund in that way, it was one of the fastest growing pension funds in Australia at above market rates of return. By the 2 key measures of pension fund success around the world, he was running a highly successful pension fund. But he was mocked in his own sector because he had the courage and vision to say there's got to be a different way because of this, and I will find a way that works and works for my pension fund members. Disruptive business models will be the norm. Be one of the first to find yours in your sector. Final story, might sound difficult, meet unusual partners, come up with the first disruptive business model in your sector, or one of the first. That's difficult. Here's a leadership challenge. If that all sounds too hard, just think of one thing your organisation can do that will create organisational success and tackle this planetary challenge. There was a high street bakery in Australia, like Greg's here, and the chief executive, he said, "I get this environmental challenge, what do we do?" And he talked to some people and they said, "Oh, you bake all your pies and your cakes in these 3 or 4 industrial type factories and you truck them out to the shops on the high street. How often do you do that?" "Oh, twice a day." "Oh, is that to ensure that they're fresh, etc.?" No. Go through it all. Why do you do it? "I've always done it that way." "Why don't you just do it once?" That's what they did, and they did it before peak hour traffic in the morning. More than half cut fuel costs, more than half cut their greenhouse gas emissions, improved health and safety for their drivers because they weren't driving around twice a day in peak hour traffic. They were driving at 4 in the morning outside those challenges in traffic. And they also massively extended the life of their vehicles. Very simple. Didn't need to get McKinsey's in to do a big study, didn't need to invest in capital. Just thought, what is one thing we can do that will improve the planet, will help us live within the planet's means, and improve my profitability? Now, I've told 3 business stories because when you work for EPAs, you mainly regulate business. We work with everyone, but my best experiences of seeing leadership is in business. You can do this if you're running a hospital, if you're working in a school. There's always opportunities because every single human activity uses this planet. So there's endless opportunities to tackle this challenge. And the key message I would say to you is it's about changing our mindset. Too many people think of this as a big threat. We heard this yesterday from one person. This is a threat to the economy. This is a huge opportunity for economic and social success. And every single one of us has the skill, ability and experience to bring to this challenge to create a very different future, because if we don't, this will turn into a threat and damage our future if we sit back and treat it as something that can't be tackled. Have the leadership, have the courage, have the vision to say we can do it. Thank you.